So diet and nutrition are often one of those confusing things that everybody's got an opinion, and the way it's often presented is not helpful. However, I think there's some things we know now that are very well proven, common sense, and will remain true in the future as well. It's not one of those things that's going to go up and down, like you see eggs are bad for you one day and they're good for you the next. It's nothing like that. So this video is about processed foods. As you may have been seeing in the news or in research articles, there's a lot of talk about how harmful processed foods are. So first, what is processed foods? So processed foods can be confusing because it's a continuum. On one end of the spectrum, you have frozen blueberries. That's a processed food. On the other end, you have, potato chips that are a very processed food. So in the research and what I'm discussing, I think what most people talk about processed foods, they really mean ultra processed foods. So you can see in this infographic, there's really a continuum. So the ones that are harmful, that we know is not good for us, are the ultra processed foods. These ultra processed foods are often made with a lot of additives, a lot of added sugars, a lot of ingredients to get you kind of addicted to it, maintain shelf life. And the purpose of it is mostly for the companies to make money, not for us to be healthy. So one way to try to manage this on your own is when you go to the grocery store and you're looking at buying something, underneath the nutritional facts, it'll list all the ingredients. So for example, if we look at two different brands of almond milk, one brand only has 3 ingredients. There's just almonds, water, and salt. Whereas the other one's got multiple lines of ingredients. So if you're trying to shop and you want to choose the less processed food or the less ultra processed foods, just get the thing that has less ingredients. Of course, those ingredients matter and it's a big deal, but that's kind of beyond this video. And as you can see here in this picture, this is just an apple. So this is what they talk about with whole foods, because it's just an apple. There's no ingredient list. There's only one ingredient, an apple. So when people talk about eating a whole food diet, they're not talking about just going to the store. They're talking about just buying ingredients that there's nothing else in it. Of course, that's not always possible. But like I pointed out earlier, if you want to pick foods for your health, you choose the brands or the items that have the least amount of ingredients. Of course, there's other things to look at, like what are those ingredients, what else are they adding in there? But that's always a good place to start, and that's what they're talking about when you see in the news or in research that ultra processed foods are bad for your health or processed foods are bad for your health. And this isn't like a guru thing or a fad. This is proven deeply in research. I'll put a bunch of resources in the description if you're curious about it. And here are 25 reasons why ultra processed foods are bad. 1, they're very high in added sugars, which links it to obesity, insulin resistance, and diabetes. 2, they're very high in refined starches, which is also going to lead to rapid blood sugar spikes. 3, they're high in unhealthy fats, which are going to increase your cardiovascular risk. 4, they're really high in sodium content, which is going to also increase your cardiovascular risk and high blood pressure. 5, they're very low in fiber, which is going to worsen your gut health, make you feel not full, make you want to eat more. 6, they're very low in nutrients. They're not nutrient-dense foods. This also displaces normal food that we eat that's very nutrient-dense, and this can lead to deficiencies. 7, they taste very good. They're engineered to make us want to eat more. 8, they're very energy dense. There's a lot of calories in a small amount of food, which can also lead to obesity and all these other metabolic factors. 9, there's a lot of liquid calories in a lot of these sodas and juices and other processed liquids. And this isn't going to make you feel full, but this is going to have a ton of excess calories. 10, the portion size and the packaging is going to promote you to just mindless snacking and eating. It's just not good for your health. 11 randomized control studies show that this is just going to increase your risk of obesity. 12 observational studies have shown it's tied with type 2 diabetes. 13, there's tons of studies that show it increases your cardiovascular risk. Number 14, it increases your cancer risk. Studies have tied it to breast cancer and colorectal cancer. 15, it promotes metabolic syndrome, which is the combination of obesity, high blood pressure, high blood sugars, and abnormal cholesterol. That's one of the things that's behind many diseases. 16, you lose your natural food matrix, which then leads to a faster digestion and a higher glycemic load. 17, they have all these additives and emulsifiers in there, which is also going to disrupt your gut's microbiome. 18, they often have a lot of artificial sweeteners, and it's not like they put monk fruit in there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's shown it's really bad for your gut health and your glucose response. 19, studies have showed the more ultra-processed foods you eat, the higher your all-cause mortality is. Essentially you're going to die earlier. It's associated with earlier death. Number 20, ultra-processed foods are correlated with cognitive decline and depression. 21, it can lead to food addiction or food addiction-like properties with excessive dopamine responses that disrupts that. 22, it's going to replace normal food, so you're not going to get your normal nutritional intake of fruits and vegetables and grains. 23, it's highly industrialized production, which is going to be environmentally costly, as well as it's going to create a lot of packaging waste. We don't need more plastic in this world. 24, there's aggressive marketing, which is a big problem, especially with children. These children they're marketed to eat Doritos and candy, and it's not good for their health, which is why we're struggling with childhood obesity. Number 25, there's an economic dependence, unfortunately. It's more expensive to buy that almond milk with 3 ingredients than the one with 20. This unfortunately leads to food deserts, and low-income areas that already struggle with health issues because of their socioeconomic group are further put in a bad position for their overall health. So ultra-processed foods, or just most people would just call them processed foods, are very bad for your health. It can be difficult to eat whole foods all the time, but just be mindful when you're buying things, what's in it. Look at that ingredient list and try not to buy something that has a paragraph of crap in it. So in summary, ultra-processed foods are very dangerous and very bad for our health. And again, it's a continuum. So some minor processing on salted nuts or a couple ingredient foods isn't going to kill you, but if you have a diet that's chock full of ultra-processed foods, it's going to cause a lot of health problems. So I find it impossible to be perfect with diet. So just try to be better than what you are now. And sometimes just being aware of this stuff makes a big difference.